Looking at 2 Kings chapter 3. Now, what we're going to see in this chapter is a situation where people are going to try to do something. They're going to try to correct something that they think needs to be correct. And it's always interesting on how things look from your own perspective, how you see it versus how other people see it. And ultimately, then, how God sees it. And there's always that concept of, a lot of times the Bible says every man is right in his what? In his own eyes. And so you always got to try to ask God to help you see the real picture.
Amen.
How does this really play out? What's really happening? What's really going on? And so you're going to see these nations here, and each of these particular kings, and they're trying to do things, and you wonder to what degree are they really trying to find out what God wants. But even with all that, you know who still shows up? God. And I think that's something we should also keep in mind when we go through our situations in life. And a lot of times we can get a little off in our thinking or selfish or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, we still look to God and thank God for his goodness. He doesn't forsake us because we get ignorant or selfish or something. He just allows us to learn from the lesson, and then he allows us then to understand him even more. And that's really the key. When we get to understand God and know who he is, that's kind of like one of the things that I try to emphasize. We want to be like David, oh, that I may know him. Right? And we also want to know him in the pardoning of our sins. But with that being said, let's get the reading in. It's kind of straightforward. Not a whole lot of mystery in this chapter. We can see kind of directly what's going on. All right, that's Mr. Smith calling in. All right, he's joining us today. Hello, Wayne. How are you, sir?
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
Hey, Wayne.
Hello.
All right, so we got him. So we are looking today in 2 Kings chapter 3. All right.
Okay.
All right, and so we're getting ready to get the reading done. So let's take a listen here. 2 Kings chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Now Jehoram the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father and like his mother, for he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. Nevertheless he cleaved unto the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. And Mesha king of Moab was a sheepmaster, and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs, and 100,000 rams with the wool. But it came to pass, when Ahab was dead, that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And King Jehoram went out of Samaria the same time, and numbered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, saying,
The king of Moab hath rebelled against me. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle?
And he said,
I will go up. I am as thou art, my people as thy people, and my horses as thy horses.
And he said,
Which way shall we go up?
And he answered,
The way through the wilderness of Edom.
So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey. And there was no water for the host, and for the cattle that followed them. And the king of Israel said,
Alas, that the Lord hath called these 3 kings together, to deliver them into the hand of Moab.
But Jehoshaphat said,
Is there not here a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire of the Lord by him?
And one of the king of Israel's servants answered and said,
Here is Elisha the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Elijah.
And Jehoshaphat said,
The word of the Lord is with him.
So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel,
What have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father, and to the prophets of thy mother.
And the king of Israel said unto him,
Nay, for the Lord hath called these 3 kings together, to deliver them into the hand of Moab.
And Elisha said,
As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, surely, were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, I would not look toward thee, nor see thee. But now, bring me a minstrel.
And it came to pass, when the minstrel played, that the hand of the Lord came upon him. And he said,
Thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. For thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet that valley shall be filled with water, that ye may drink both ye and your cattle and your beasts. And this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. He will deliver the Moabites also into your hand, and ye shall smite every fenced city, and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all wells of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones.
And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings were come up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor, and upward and stood in the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. And they said,
This is blood, the kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now therefore, Moab, to the spoil.
And when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them. But they went forward, smiting the Moabites even in their country. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone, and filled it. And they stopped all the wells of water, and felled all the good trees. Only in Kirharaseth left they the stones thereof, howbeit the slingers went about it, and smote it. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men that drew swords, to break through even unto the king of Edom, but they could not. Then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great indignation against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land.
All right. Now, as you can
It's
see,
amazing. This is amazing how God is working with his people, and they just they're just not getting it.
exactly. You see in this particular chapter, there's just, I mean, there's no real hero in this chapter. You know, there's nobody like, oh yeah, I want to be like him. You know, and sometimes, you know, we have to remember in our lives, we have things that we just have in our mind we want to do, and we're going to do it, and it's sometimes not really part of what God's trying to do, but God shows up to help us even in our ignorant actions. But you'll see here, there's a reason why this is happening, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. So let's kind of elaborate on this, and like I said, it's pretty straightforward. But it starts off in verse 1 of chapter 3, and it says, "Now Jeroboam the son of Ahab." Okay, now we remember Ahab, right? Ahab and Jezebel. Now Ahab at this point is already dead. Okay, Jezebel's still alive. All right, and so Jehoram, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel in Samaria. And Samaria just talks about the main city in the nation of Israel. And remember, the full Israel has split in two. So you got Israel, or Samaria, sometimes it's called, on the north, and then you got Judah on the south. Okay, so we got Jehoram, and he's the son of Ahab, and he's ruling in Israel. All right, and in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah. So now we got the king of Judah. He reigned 12 years. So it's giving you the concept of his time. But look what it says in verse 2. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord. That's what he did. He was an evil king. Okay. Well, look where he came from. His father, his mother were evil. He said, and he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father. So he wasn't as bad as Ahab. Because remember, the Bible said that Ahab was the most wickedest king there was. So his son was wicked, but wasn't as bad as him. Well, let's see why. What does it say? But not like his father, and like his mother. And once again, who was his mother? Jezebel.
Jezebel.
For he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. So he got rid of the Baal images. Okay. All right. Which was which was good. It's a good thing. He's recognized some of the stuff we're doing is nonsense. It's not really working. It didn't work from our dad. That's why he's dead. But look at verse 3. Nevertheless, he cleaved unto the sins of Jeroboam. That was the first king of Israel. All right, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin, and departed not therefrom. So what did Jeroboam did? Jeroboam produced those idols in the northern area, so that the people, when they wanted to worship, didn't have to go down to Judah, because Jeroboam did not want the people going down to Judah and serving God and then coming back up here. It's like we don't want to go down to Mexico or over to Canada to do certain things. We want to keep it all in America, and that's what Jeroboam did. But in reality, the real things that God had set up, He set up in the area where Jerusalem and Judah was, and that's where God's temple, the temple that was built by Solomon, and all that. That's where that was, and that's where God said His presence would be if they obeyed me. The problem is that they weren't obeying God anyway, right? And one of the things they should have kept in mind was that they didn't need to have false gods just because they couldn't get to the temple. Right? That's like saying, "Well, I'm gonna serve a false god because I don't have a Bible, so I'm gonna serve a false god." No, God
it's
is
like
still
today.
Hmm?
It's like today.
It's
People
like-
saying, "Well, I don't see Jesus, so I'm gonna make my own God, me."
People do. Yep, they make their God a trinity as well. Me, myself, and I. And sometimes people serve other things. They serve God, money, power. All right, but so Jehoram was still a problem king. He did not do, and nor did he seek the things of God. All right. So we go on and we look at verse 4. And Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep master, and rendered to the kings of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. All right. So now Israel had another nation that was basically paying them a large amount of tax in cattle and all of the various things. But look at what verse 5 says. And we already went through this. We saw this, and it's just reviewing this here. We saw that this happened in previous chapters. Look at verse 5. But it came to pass when Ahab was dead that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And what did that mean? I'm not paying you these taxes anymore. I'm not giving you these wolves, these sheep, and these rams. I'm not doing it. All right. Verse 7. And when and he went up and sent Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, saying, "The king of Moab hath rebelled against me." So now the king in the south, the king in the north, is now reaching out to the king in Judah, the king in the south, and saying, "Can you join me? Can you help me here?" All right, because Moab is rebelling. In other words, Moab's not paying me my taxes, and I need to go and force them to do what I told them to do, and I need your help. So here's a king that is not good, although he wasn't as bad as his father, and he's trying to get his money back. Basically, I'm trying to get my property. I'm trying to get the stuff that I used to have during the time when my father was king, and now we don't have it. I want to get it back. All right, and so he's now saying, and this is why people go to war. I mean, he's going to war over these sheep and rams. We go to war over oil. We go to war over, gold and diamond mines and drug cartels. And there's a whole lot of things why we go to war today. It's very similar back then. It produces wealth. It produces money. Right? It helps to establish. So I want these Moabs to continue to give me my sheep, and to continue to give me my rams, and to continue to give me the wool thereof. All right. So he's asking for help. I can't go in there and get it myself, right? Because remember that when they were having these other wars, they were sending out these captains. Remember, they kept sending the captains out to Elijah, and Elijah had fire come down from heaven and burn them up, right? And that happened twice. So we already studied that. So the army itself is depleted somewhat. So he knows he needs help. So he reaches out to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah. All right. And so let's read 7 again. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, saying, the king of Moab have rebelled against me. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I will go up. I am as thou art, my people as thy people, and my horses as thy horses. So he said, yep, I will join forces. This is what the king of the south says. And so now we got 2 kings so far that are going to fight against Moab. Okay. We're going to see here now in just a bit that we're going to have another king. And says, and he said, which way shall we go up? And he answered, the way through the wilderness of Edom. So now he's going to go through Edom, and what it doesn't say directly, but we'll see that in a minute, that when they went through, they also had conscripted the help of the king of Edom. So you got 3 kings that we're going to see here in a minute. It's going to say, I'm pointing out that it infers it here, but we're going to see as we keep going that it directly says.
So you have 3 nations against Israel?
No, you got 3 nations against Moab.
Moab. Oh, okay.
So you got the king of Israel, the king of Judah, and the king of Edom will join and fight against Moab.
Okay.
All right, because Moab's not giving them the sheep. All right? And so you look at this and you're like, there's no real godly aspect going here. All right, but and you wonder, well, what's really going on? And it's funny that how carnal people can be when you start dealing with material things. And this is what this chapter kind of outlines. But yet, even in all of this, God is still God. And he's still there. And he still helps. And he still shows himself. All right? Look at verse 9. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom. See? So we let you know that these 3 kings, and they fenced a compass for 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host and for the cattle that followed them. All right. So now they're going up, these 3 kings, and they don't even prepare enough to have enough water. You know, when somebody does something and you're like, well, you went to go do that, but you didn't bring water, enough water, because you can see that they're not really as we would say organized. Right? It's like I'm gonna go out to the store and I'm gonna go get a whole bunch of groceries, but you bring no bags because they don't give you bags now. So you don't. So how are you gonna carry them home? I mean, and it's a little thing. It's like, okay, well that don't mean. Yeah, it means a lot when you got to bring in a car full of stuff and you don't got no grocery bags. And it's a little thing, but you didn't bring something small. Or you say, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna shovel this snow, but I'm not gonna put on a hat, or I'm not gonna wear any gloves. And you would think, well, you should. And you see these little things that people do, bad decisions they're trying to do something and they're not even making proper preparations. And in all of this, what does this show? It shows the ignorance, and sometimes I would just say the stupidity of man, and how we need God. Because we can just be foolish in what we're doing. I mean, I can see that, there's a lot of things. I'm going to drive down to Florida in my car, but I'm not going to put any gas in the tank. You're going to drive from New York to Florida and you didn't even fill up? And you say, well, Wayne, those are obvious things to do. Well, that's what I'm talking about. These are kings that are not focusing on obvious things. And you would figure that maybe, God will let them learn their lesson. But let's look what happens. Verse 10. And the king of Israel said, alas, the Lord has called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. And I have to stop there, and I highlighted that portion there. This is the king of Israel. He has no faith in God. He doesn't have any godly heritage. He was not brought up to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He knows about him because he knows about what Elijah did. And Elijah's been caught up now. And so he now is in a mindset of defeat. We done ran out of water, and now we were going out to fight against Moab, but it looks like we're going to die of thirst, and Moab's going to get the victory. He done already gave up. He done quit. We're not going to really get it because he doesn't have any confidence that God can help him in a time of trouble. And you see how people can get depressed. And look what he says. These three kings together. And he says, and he's blaming God. He says, alas, the Lord have called these three kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. This is Ahab's son saying this. But look at what the king of Judah, and Judah still seeks God, although his decision to help Joram may be a little questionable, but he's there. But look what he says in verse 11. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not a prophet of the Lord? All right, he's seeking God. Do we got a Bible here somewhere? Do we got somebody that knows the Lord? Do we got somebody that has the Spirit of God in them? All right, somebody that can get in contact and has a relationship with God. So Jehoshaphat said, is there not a prophet of the Lord, that we may inquire of the Lord by him? All right. So he's not agreeing with Jehoram, the king of Israel. Well, I guess we're going to lose. No, he's like, we're going to ask God. So at least he has that. All right. It says, and then it says, and one of the king of Israel's servants answered and said, here is Elisha, the son of Seraphat, which pour water on the hands of Elijah. So he's saying the servant that walked with Elijah is still around, named Elisha. He's somebody that we can go to and get an answer directly from God. Okay. Verse 12. And Jehoshaphat said, the word of the Lord is with him. So the kings of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. So now we got these three kings going to Elisha, and I always think about the imagery of when the Magi were going down to see Jesus, right? And so now you got these kings here that need help, and they're going down to see Elisha. Verse 13. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, what have I to do with thee? Get thee to thy own prophets of thy father and the prophets of thy mother. All right. So when Elisha saw him and he saw the king of Israel, who was the one that was this really leading this battle, Elisha tells him, why are you coming to me? Why don't you go to the gods of your father, Ahab, or to the gods of your mother, Jezebel? Why don't you call on them? Why are you coming to me? Because you know the true God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's the God that can actually make a difference. Look what he says. And the king of Israel said unto him, nay, for the Lord hath called these three kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. So the king of Israel is still saying this defeat of stuff. He's still in his we can't win mindset. And he's like, well, no, I'm not going to call on our God because your God is the one that brought us here so we can die. So the Moab can take over us. But it was his idea. So it was his plan to do it. And then when the plan went bad, guess what he decided to do? I'm going to blame God. And so we go and make some decisions and we do things. And then we say, God, why are you allowing this to happen? This was your plan. This was your idea. God didn't tell you to do this. You just went ahead and did it, and now you're trying to get God to help you in it. Right? And so it's amazing how we can look at this and go, yeah, yep. There's a lot of people that fall into this mindset.
Yeah, so many times I find myself, in this situation and I have to back.
You got to back up. You're like, Lord, you know what? This ain't working, it looks like. But at least the king of Judah, at least Jehoshaphat, has decided, let's just seek God. Mm-hmm. Let's see what God got to say. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And then look at verse 14. And Elisha said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, surely were not it that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, I would not look towards thee nor see thee. Now, what is Elijah saying? He said, I'm looking at you three kings, and I don't got regard for none of y'all except for Jehoshaphat, because I know he still seeks and asks God. And it was Jehoshaphat that said, can we find a prophet of God? Right? It was his decision. And Elisha knows it. He can see the Spirit of God in this king. And it's almost like, look, I see you and I respect you, but what are you doing with these other two dudes? Why are you hanging around with the king of Israel and with the king of Edom? These guys don't know God like you do. And why are you trying to do what they, and you following them? Does that speak to us sometimes? Some of the things that we can do. So he says, I'm going to deal with your situation. I'm going to go to God only because I honor Jehoshaphat, that he still is a God lover. He still seeks God. He still knows the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, look at verse 15. But now bring me a minstrel. All right, and what does that mean? Bring me somebody that can play music. I often think about how Saul needed to have David come and play the harp from him, and that would soothe the evil spirit and remove the evil spirit that was in Saul. So you can see once again how sometimes having some good music to play can help you enter into the Spirit of God, help you to just be connected, and you just allow your emotions to find the very presence of God. Now this is Elisha. He's saying, bring me a minstrel. And it came to pass when the minstrel played that the hand of the Lord came upon him. While the minstrel was playing, the hand of God came upon Elisha. Look at 16. And he said, thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. Now, okay. So first thing he's saying is, I want you to go into the valley that you guys are, where y'all sitting there, y'all have no water, and I want you to just dig ditches. Just dig holes in the ground. And just all over. Just keep digging ditches. A whole bunch. So he put them to work.
Yeah.
You know how much work and labor it is to just dig ditches. And he didn't say dig one. He said dig ditches all over the land. So God puts them to work. Look at verse 17. All right, because this is the instructions to do, because their problem is they think they're going to die because they don't have enough water for them, the army, or the cattle, or none of the stuff that they brought with them. They're dying of thirst. Look at 17. For thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall you see rain. So right now it don't sound like a good. We're not going to see no wind. We're not going to see no rain. But look at the next word. Yet that valley shall be filled with water, that ye may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beasts. Now, he's saying, I'm going to fill that land. All those ditches that you dug, they're going to be full of water. Not because it rained, though. Not because a storm came. Something else is going to happen. But you're going to get the water. You're not going to die out there, die of thirst. All right? All right? But then he keeps on. Look what he says in verse 18. And this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. This is basically what he's saying. That's just the beginning of it. That's just the start. The water part is just the beginning. But then he goes on and he says, he will deliver Moab also into your hand. So not only are you going to get the water, but you're also going to win the war. You're going to win the battle. In the midst of this, you got one good king and you got two kings that are evil, that are bad. All right? It's amazing. I think about Jesus on the cross, right? He was surrounded by what? Two thieves. All right? But fortunately, one of those thieves came to his senses while he was hanging there. And so you look at this, and so you got Jehoshaphat, he's surrounded by these two other non-godly kings, and they're going to battle against another ungodly nation, Moab. Now, they're fighting against Moab. Moab doesn't recognize God either. So basically, you got four nations here. You know, you got Edom, you got Israel, you got Judah, and then you got Moab, who the other three are fighting against. And the only nation that even knows God to serve him is the king of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. All right, and so Moab is in trouble. So God's going to allow Moab to see a defeat. But let's keep going. All right, so he says, I'm going to deliver Moab. Verse 19. And ye shall smite every fenced city. So when you get to Moab, every fenced city, in other words, cities that they built fences around to protect them, you're going to destroy those cities. So strongholds. God, and what you look at this is God is breaking down all these things. Even in our lives, the enemy tries to have fenced cities, places they don't want you to go, places that they don't want you to be able to enter. And God's going to say, you're going to break those down. You're going to break it down. And what's in the fenced city? Whatever the spoil is, whatever riches that are there, whatever benefits are there, you're going to break it down and get access to it. So you're going to smite every fenced city and every choice city. The cities that are good, that are in good spots, you're going to get that. And shall fall every good tree. You're going to chop down it's like a wilderness or a forest, but when you leave, it's going to be like a desert. It's going to be like a plain, no forest, just wilderness and grass. And stop all wells of water. And their water you will stop up. You're going to put dirt and rocks in their wells so that the water no longer is accessible. All right? And mar every good piece of land with stone. So the places where they had fertile soil, you're going to throw all kinds of stones into the fertile soil so that the fertile soil is hard to cultivate. Right? So you're basically going in there and you're going to make it a place that was a very choice area, and you're going to turn it into something that is devastated, something that is no longer has the proper ability to easily bring forth nourishment and growth. Verse 20, and it came to pass in the morning when the meat offering was offered, that behold, and I kind of like that. It's like, oh, behold, all of a sudden, what's that mean? That means God just acted. God says, okay, start now. Behold, all right, there came water by the way of Edom. Now, Edom is part of this, and somehow or another, God allowed water to flow through Edom into the area that they were. What did God do? God made a river instantly. He made a stream instantly, and the water flowed. The water's not coming because it rained. It's the hand of God carving a stream or a river or a brook or whatever it was, and that water flowed from the direction of Edom right to where they were. Okay? And so it says, and the water came by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. So now the ground is saturated, all those ditches that you built are now pools of water. Look at 21. And when all the Moab heard that the kings were come to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor and upward and stood at the border. So now Moab recognized the word got to them. These kings, these three kings are coming to fight against me. So Moab is like, okay, we're going to go fortify ourselves and we're going to go right by the border and take a look and see where they're coming from and what they're doing. Okay, verse 22. It says, and they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water. So Moab got up and they looked down there and they looked at all this water that was down there. But there was an odd thing happening. The way the sun was hitting the water made Moab see something unusual, and it made them act very out of character. Look what it says. I'm going to read 22 again. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water, and Moab saw the water on the other side as red as blood. So when Moab looked out there, it didn't look like the ground was saturated with water. It looked like the ground was saturated with what? With blood. Yeah. That's what it looked. God allowed them to see something that was a distorted vision of what was really there. And that's amazing how sometimes God allows the enemy not to see the truth. Why? Because they don't want the truth. The truth was the ground was saturated with water. But when Moab was looking at it, they saw the ground saturated with blood. All right, which was an incorrect diagnosis that they have. And why does that happen? Because people that don't serve God always lack seeing the truth. They're not lovers of the truth. So they're not seeing what's actually going on. But if you love God, God says, I will show you truth. Jesus said, for this cause came I into the world to bear witness to the truth. And the truth shall do what?
Set you free.
It will set you free. All right. Verse 13. And they said, this is blood. All right. That's what Moab said. This is blood. The kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. So what Moab said was, oh, those three kings came together and they must have got into an argument and they must have started killing each other. And so Moab's thinking, oh, well, we don't even got to fight, right? Because they done fought each other and they done killed one another, right? And sometimes people can see that. Sometimes people look at a situation and they're like, well, they don't care for each other. They're fighting each other. Well, that's not true. That's not what happened. Sometimes you can have situations and you look at a certain family, like that family, they don't love each other. They always fighting each other. That ain't true. That's how you see it. And so what Moab is seeing is not the truth. But they're going to act on this truth. Look what it says. Let me read 23 again. And they said, this is blood. The kings are surely slain. The kings are slain means the kings are dead. That's what Moab thinks. And they have smitten one another. Now, based on that incorrect information, they're going to make a decision. Look what it says. Now, therefore, Moab to the spoil. We're going to go down and we're going to collect all the leftovers, all the stuff that's good, because they don't kill each other. All we got to do now is go down and collect all the valuables. 24. And when they had come to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites. So they came down there and they recognized, ooh, this ain't blood, this is water. They then begin to what? See the truth. And that truth then points out that the bad decision that this king of Moab made by seeing something that was not there. But guess what? God allowed them to see that. Sometimes God will allow you to see something that ain't really what it really is when you don't want God anyway. You think you want to go and do something, and God's like, okay, I'm going to let you go in your own strength and in your own power. All right? And God will hide them. That's why Jesus said he even talked in parables. All right? For those that are the children of God, they will have ears to hear it. But for the people that don't serve God, they will hear something totally different. Okay, and so that's an important thing. And the same thing when it comes to reading the Bible. You got people that love God and they're seeking God out of their whole heart. And when they read the Bible, they can see and receive the power of God. But then you got people that don't love God. They just read the Bible so they can prove it wrong or try to do something else. They're not getting the same thing that the child of God is getting. Right? And so that's why that's an important thing. All right, so the children of Israel rose up and they smote the Moabites so that they fled before them. But they went forward smiting the Moabs, even in their own country. So they followed the Moabs when they started running back, and they followed them right back to what? Their own country. 25. And they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man stones. Right? That's what Elisha said. You're going to throw on the good ground, you're going to throw stones so that the fertile ground is now what? Full of stones. And filled it up. And they stopped all the wells of water. That's what Elisha said. You were going to block their access to water by stopping up their wells. All right. They stopped up all the wells of water and fell down every good tree. Right. So whatever good wilderness or forest they had, the good trees, you were going to be cutting them down, and that's what they did. And it says, only in Kedroth Asaph left they the stones thereof. Howbeit, the slingers went about it and smote it. So basically it's saying in every kind of conceivable way, any value that was in Moab was turned to useless land, useless area. All right? And so this is what happens to the enemy. God can come in, and though you think they initially thought they had what? Victory. But it turned into utter devastation. Okay? And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, in other words, we're losing and we're losing bad. There's no coming back from this. He took with him 700 men that drew swords. So he said, y'all stop fighting against them. Y'all come around and protect me and help me get back to where I need to be. He got 700 men that drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom, but he could not. So he said, can you get me through here? And those men, those 700 men that was using their swords, couldn't get through. No matter how hard they fought, they couldn't get through. So what does now the king of Moab decide to do? Let's keep reading. Look what he says. Then he, the king of Moab, took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead. So if the king of Moab would have allowed himself to die, his son would have become the next king. But that's not what happened. He said he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. He burnt up his son as an offering to their false gods. You killed your generation trying to serve you. That's a sad thing when a father is so focused on himself that he will destroy his son. Very, very evil behavior. But this is what happens when you're trying to find some kind of spiritual connection. And they're doing it trying to get something that can help them beyond their own natural ability. But that's not what you go to. No. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they sacrifice a lot of valuable things, even in their own family, trying to get victory over something that God has already said you have lost. So he offered up his son upon the wall. And there was great indignation against Israel. And they departed from him and returned to their own land. All right. So no matter what the king of Moab did, he lost. Now, The king of Moab lost this battle not because the king of Israel, the king of Edom, and the king of Judah were so godly in their activity. They lost this battle because God intervened anyway. Despite of it, he came in and became the God that can bring forth a victory even when people are not truly walking the way they should walk, are not truly serving them. But thank God for Elisha, the one person in the midst of all of this story that knows God and knows him in a way that is proper. All right. Like I said, very unusual story here of how God can yet come in and do things even when things sometimes don't seem like you've done the proper thing. But see, that's the key, is that God, he knows us. All right? Our best righteousness is filthy rags. And he's always showing forth grace and mercy, long suffering, kindness, and patience. And God is that. That's the same God that we serve, and we seek God for those things. All right, we're going to stop here. Any other comments or questions on what we talked about today?